In December 2023, we got our first look at Exodus Become the Traveler, and it looked a little something like this. Now since then, we have learned tons more about the game, and so today I'll do something similar that I did with my previous video about Mass Effect, where I dive into the first announcement of Exodus leading up to the status of the game, as well as an overview of the game in general, as of today. And just a reminder, if you're interested in future updates about Exodus, and if you'd like to chat about the game, or, well, gaming in general, you're always welcome to do so during my weekly live streams. So remember to subscribe for any notifications for when I'm live, or whenever I release a new video. Now first of all, what is Exodus? Well, for any newcomers here, Exodus is an upcoming sci-fi RPG which was first announced during the Game Awards 2023 by none other than Hollywood megastar Matthew McConaughey.
In this game, time moves differently. Now, personally, I have had some experience with time dilation. And now you can too. So now I'm proud to share the first ever look at Exodus.
Now, if you first thought, hey, that looks like Mass Effect, well, I wouldn't blame you. In fact, several veteran developers from BioWare's heyday are actually the ones in charge of the development at Exodus. While the entire dev team is comprised of many industry veterans from all manner of studios, the ones in charge of steering the ship are the BioWare vets, James Olin, Chad Robertson, and even the lead writer to Mass Effect 1 and 2, Drew Karpyshyn, who is also acting as the lead writer for Exodus. In fact, tons of people are already seeing Exodus as a spiritual successor to Mass Effect, considering its many similarities with the franchise, at least on the surface. Now, one big similarity that'll be the prime driver behind the story is that of how much of your choices actually matter, which seems to be a lot. You see, Exodus is doing something that we haven't really seen before in gaming, and that'll be dealing with the effects of time dilation. What this means is that at certain points in the game, you will generally have to deal with consequences which might end up spanning decades or centuries. You do this by playing as what is called a Travler, which is someone who, well, travels across the galaxy to find various technologies or artifacts that could help propel humanity forward. And each time you provide humanity with a certain item or not, you will then be able to experience the consequences of that the next time you return to your planet, because whenever you travel using faster than light speeds, time slows to a crawl for you while time passes by much faster for those you leave behind. Now, actual time dilation is a little bit more complicated than this, but that's essentially it in a nutshell. Now, in a recent Q&A session, James Olin revealed that you won't be able to bring every companion with you on your journeys as a traveler, which means that you'll sometimes leave them behind, and when you return, you'll see how they have aged and how the civilization has progressed together with them. Which gives off the idea that Exodus will be toying with your emotions a lot. And this is essentially how the main story will unfold, with the concept of time dilation being the main plot device to keep the story moving. Now, while that is cool and all, what has me very invested so far is the world building. You see, Archetype Entertainment hasn't been working in complete silence these past few years. They've actually been uploading a lot of world-building material on their official website, which includes descriptions of alien races, short stories, Q&A sessions, and other material that explains how the universe of Exodus works. And if you're looking to learn more about the game, I'd suggest you check out their official website because it has tons of information on it that'll keep you occupied for at least a while. But one of my favorite pieces of world-building material has to be Just at the Edge of Hearing, which is a short story that describes how humans go insane because of the sounds made by a planet's shifting tectonic plates. "Do you hear that?" he asked, but Steven was still ranting about potatoes. Ollie felt blood all over his chin and strung between his teeth. "I hear..." And then he lunged. Content such as this short story really paints a picture of how just absolutely brutal the universe of Exodus is, and I imagine we'll actually experience space horror to this caliber when we actually do get to play the game. Now, the latest showcase we got for Exodus was in December when we got our first official gameplay trailer, and well, it was pretty good.
This place is forbidden. The price is death.
That's what it means to be a traveler.
In said trailer, we got our first real look not only at the third-person action, but also of some of our companions as well as the player character, June. Now, I've talked about June in previous videos, but to give a rundown, June is the child of a celestial mother and a legendary human traveler called Aslan, who founded the Aslan dynasty, which became one of the most prominent royal houses of humanity. And after Aslan mysteriously disappears, June gets chased off planet by their brother, Gideon, who wants to rule the Aslan dynasty by himself. Now, because June is half celestial, this gives us the ability to interact with celestial technology that's scattered throughout the Centauri cluster. Now, there's a ton of context missing here, but that's essentially the gist of June's backstory. And yes, you'll be able to customize June to your own liking, whether that be playing as male or female, and customizing their appearance. Now, while we're on the topic of Celestials, what are they? Well, the Celestials are descendants of the earliest human ark ships that arrived in the Centauri cluster. These pioneers settled thousands of years before the later waves of humanity, leading to radical evolutionary and technological advancements. Over time, they became something more than human, adapting biologically and culturally into advanced civilizations that now exist beyond the reach of ordinary humans. While some Celestials remain neutral or even benevolent toward humanity, others see them as lesser beings, unworthy of interstellar expansion. Among the most terrifying of the celestial offshoots are the Mara Yama, a nomadic faction that thrives on fear and suffering. Once a faction of Celestials themselves, the Marayama have since become monstrous entities that drift through space in massive, grotesque citadel ships, some spanning 50 kilometers in length. The Marayama don't just conquer, they harvest minds, memories, and emotions, breaking down their victims piece by piece. Now, the fact that they are grotesque collections of minds and bodies might remind you of the Reapers, and, well, you're not alone, and I have a feeling that they might end up being the main antagonists in Exodus. Or maybe not. The point still stands, they're absolutely terrifying, and I love them. Now, lore, choices, and world building is great and all, but any great game also needs good gameplay. So, what's the moment-to-moment gameplay in Exodus? Well, as you've seen from the footage, Exodus is a third-person action shooter in pretty much the same style as, yep, you guessed it, Mass Effect, but seemingly with much more mobility. Thing is, Mass Effect has always been sort of a cover shooter, and while this may end up as the most common playstyle for most people, Exodus actually lets you maneuver around the map with a grappling hook, and it looks like June in general can do more acrobatic stuff like climb high ledges and stuff like that. Apparently, there will also be a ton of both celestial and human weaponry that we can collect throughout the game, and from the looks of it, most of it will be super futuristic with laser beams and other highly futuristic weapons and tools, which I'm looking forward to a lot. The game will also feature tons of other classic RPG elements like skill trees, perks, armor sets, and so on, which is just as important as combat itself, especially in an RPG. Now, we don't have any exact confirmation yet on whether Exodus will be open world in the traditional sense of you, say, dropping onto a planet to then exploring a vast environment freely. However, Chad Robertson did say in a Q&A video that the game isn't about exploring vast open spaces, and that the game is very focused on the narrative. So if anything, I'm expecting it to have semi-open zones like that of Mass Effect 2 or 3, where you have explorable areas, but it doesn't just have huge maps where you wander around aimlessly. Now, one huge question that's getting asked a lot is what role Matthew McConaughey will play, and according to the Exodus team, his character will interact with almost every character in the game, so my personal guess is that he plays an AI that acts as your assistant throughout the game. Then again, take that with a grain of salt, but it would explain a lot of what's been said about him. Now, after the gameplay trailer had dropped, lots of people were expecting Archetype Entertainment to start the marketing engines for Exodus since it looked pretty polished. However, according to Hasbro's latest earnings call, Exodus is apparently slated for a 2026 release, meaning we're still around a year or more away from playing the game. On one hand, this was pretty disappointing for me personally, but it gives James Olin and his team more time to polish the game, and to be completely frank, it's pretty understandable as this year is already pretty crowded with games, such as the excellent Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Expedition 33, GTA 6, and more. Suffice it to say, it's definitely a safer bet releasing Exodus in 2026, as the lineup for next year is so far looking pretty thin. Now, I think one thing that's really important to mention here is that Exodus is not just going to be a game. James Olin and Chad Robertson have during multiple times referred to Exodus as an IP, and we've already seen different types of media in the universe of Exodus, like a recent session where James showcased the tabletop RPG called The Traveler's Handbook, an episode on Secret Level, and a book expanding on the universe called the Archimedes Engine. So while the game is the main draw for now, it looks like Archetype Entertainment, Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro are trying to make this into a franchise. Take from that what you will, but for now, the game itself looks really promising and I can't wait to learn more about it. Now, there are several details I didn't dive into with this video, like that of the genetically enhanced animals and more, but I will be covering that in due time as we learn more about the game. So again, remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already. But that's enough talking for today. I wish you a very pleasant day. This has been Mr. Holton, signing off.